Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode at the War at Home, FW22's podcast. It's crazy to think we're on episode 7, even though we just have all the episodes mixed up whenever we push them out. As always, founder Jared White, and then today our special guest again, board member Nate Mollering. And one of the things I like to do is I always like to let our guests introduce themselves, but I do want to say first and foremost, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. Thank you for being a partner of FW22, and thank you both for what you do in our community. So thank you so much for being here, and let's get a little introduction from you two.
I'm Blake Evans. That's all I got.
That's all you got? You're
Yeah,
Blake
that's
Evans?
my intro.
All right. Well, I'm Kelly Evans, and then I'm married to Blake. We've been married almost 13 years.
That's outstanding. Why are you two here today, besides the fact that I asked, what is it that you two do in the community? What's your real life work, military background? I mean, literally the mic is yours.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were going to ask me questions.
Well, it's a casual conversation. I want you to feel relaxed, no pressure.
So I'm an Army veteran. I was in right out of high school, 2008 to like 2011, right at the end of 2011. 2 tours to Afghanistan, and I own a property inspection business.
What's it called?
National Property Inspections.
Nice.
Yeah.
How long has that been for?
4 years.
Okay.
Yep. And still going strong, trying to grow. But yeah, go ahead.
I did not serve, but I was with Blake. We're kind of, I guess you'd say, like high school sweethearts. And so I was in my senior year of high school, and Blake went on his first deployment, and then at Ball State for an elementary and special ed education degree on his second deployment. And then I own Dust Off Disaster Recovery. So it's a restoration and a duct cleaning business. And we kind of just work alongside each other in each other's businesses. And then, I don't know, in the community, I feel like when we started National Property Inspections, we wanted something to be able to give back, but we didn't just want it to be like, oh, pick an organization and just give back to them, but something that felt like authentic and true to us. And coming back, as I'm sure you guys all know, from or getting out of the military is a journey. And Fort Wayne 22, when we were looking around, just made total sense and aligned with kind of who we are as people. And so I think we met with Tyler to start. And
that's what I was going to ask. I should know this as one of the founders, but I didn't know how you came in contact with us. What I do know is when I came back in January and made that decision that I'm going to take this over, we're going to change some stuff that I didn't like had happened the 3 years it took my break. Tyler had mentioned, hey, I know you're kind of running things now, but Blake Evans, you might want to reach out. He's been, one of our supporters. And I'm like, his name sounds familiar. And where we go to Famous Taco? Is that where you and I went?
Yeah, we went for lunch.
And
first time there, it was good.
Yeah, well, it worked out for me because I was just going to reintroduce myself and meet him. And then I ended up telling him, like, listen, I want a partnership. This is what I want. This is what I want in the future. And even since our famous taco meeting, I've already kind of changed that before. Like originally, your guys' sponsor was just for the hike. But what I'm doing literally as we speak is I'm going to create 5 to 10 companies or organizations that are my people. And they're going to, pay that yearly fee. But what that will allow is anytime we do a charity event, you're automatically allowed to be there with a booth. Any type of swag or promotional items will have your logos on it, and you'll be on our website as like a prestigious partner, like someone that we trust, someone that aligns with our views. I'm gonna be working and begging Allendale to do the same thing. Same thing with Remedy Live. We'll still have sponsors and stuff like that, but it's all year long you're writing FW22, like you're going to be involved in anything you want. And it's just important. And I think, as a nonprofit, one of the things that we have to do is fundraising. And a lot of people don't like asking for money or aren't good at it, or when they get told no, they kind of just, and I'm like, listen, veterans are killing themselves. Mental health is insane. The addiction and opiate in our country is out of control. I need all your money. I'm going to be a psychopath. I'm going to make change. Yeah. These are who I'm partnered with. And I think partnering with people like Bare Knuckle Recovery and Allendale, even Harley Davidson, your two companies, like these are people that we don't just want to donate and say, you know, I feel good about myself. We want to take the fight to them, and really, like just like their model, bare knuckle. It's a bare knuckle brawl. We're gonna get our hands dirty, and we gotta do something. So, the money that you sponsored is going to give you access for a whole year to be involved with everything we do. Because I love what you do. I love Dust Off's logo way more though than the other logo.
Well,
That logo
this
is
one's a
sick.
franchise, so you know, can't really do a whole lot with that one.
Well, you have no control over that, huh?
That
there you
Dust
go.
Off logo
Dust Off,
is
we created
sick.
that. That's our own. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's like, what was it, like a chopper?
Yeah, it's a Black Hawk. Yeah.
Well, the crazy thing is, like, we had wanted to start that company,
Okay.
but wanted to kind of like pay, I guess, like tribute to
Yeah.
your time in service, but then also like who you lost in service. And we were
Mhm.
at like one of his really good friends that he was in the army with, lives in North Carolina, and we were at their house. We knew we were going to do this. We're like, hey, what do we name it? What do we call it? And so it was just this neat thing. I think almost like a full circle moment of like, these were your people and the people who had your back, you know,
Yeah.
when in service, or for you, like when you were in service. And then just knowing like that they're there for us as we like try to start something else like new and scary or whatever. And so it was really cool, I think, to be at their house and I don't know, have their help in figuring it out. I don't even know how it
Yeah.
got thrown around. You guys threw around a whole bunch of different names and
Well, I think it
things.
kind of goes
Some that
hand in
were
hand
inappropriate,
with NPI, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a win-win, and you're married, so it's like two
Yeah.
businesses, two incomes, one household. Let's go.
Right.
So I expect you to be going to the Bahamas a lot more and just enjoying
We
life.
just bought a new
I
house,
wish.
so
Well,
we're
that-
kind of
that-
locked down.
Scale them back for a little bit.
Yeah.
Tighten the belt.
Well, and I
Yeah.
remember too when we had Famous Taco, he was like, "Yeah, I think I want to do this, but you're gonna have to be patient." I'm like, "Listen, I don't need your money right now." And I think
It was
it's been
like, I gotta
s-
convince the wife that we're
Yeah.
gonna give you this.
Well, I think it was like it's been like 6 months, but I understand what I was asking, and I understand where I want to take us. So it's not like give me your money now. Like I was like, I don't care, dude.
Yeah.
You guys are stuck with me for a long time, so no
Love it.
pressure. So that means you did get the house.
Yep.
Congratulations. I'm very
Thank
proud of you
you.
both. And you said it's in the middle of nowhere, which is awesome.
Yep.
So that makes me happy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very exciting.
Well, I think it's nice to just like when he came home and talked about like how he met with you. You know how sometimes you just meet with people and I don't know, you go tell somebody about it and like they can feel that energy.
Yeah.
Like I could tell like he was super excited about it. Like it was obviously a good meeting, but then just I think nice to talk to somebody else who kind of has like a similar experience. And yeah, and I feel like both of you are going out and like you're not just like, hey, this is what we do and this is what we're about, but like you're boots on the ground and you're doing it.
Yeah.
And that feels really nice too, of like, to be honest, I think that we wish we could be more involved in something like actually like ourselves with time. We also have 2 small kids and starting 2 companies. And so you kind of feel like your plate's full, but you also feel guilty because you do want to make an impact. So I love that you guys are the boots on the ground and you're doing it. And that feels really nice to be able to just be a part of it in some way.
I can assure you, and this sounds crazy, but a big part of what we do, we need the funding. When I came back, you know, I felt guilty when I left because we were in a really good spot. And I felt like it was my responsibility that we kind of declined, but it's because I didn't make everybody else do what I do. I just was used to doing everything. So when I left, I mean, literally the decline was there. It was nuts. And I remember when Tyler even asked me last year, he literally said, we're going to dissolve. And I was like, great. Like, I'm good. I did my part. You know, I'm raising my family. I'm helping these other nonprofits. And then we had another conversation. He's like, what would it take for you to come back? And I was like, well, we need a clean slate. Everybody needs to go. Even, and some of them I love with all my heart, but it was just like, I needed a freshness. And I knew I was going to attack it this time differently, more persistent, because we were really on the rise. I mean, we got so big so quick that Tyler and I were way in over our head. I mean, literally the last hike we did, we raised $70K at the event. Like it was nuts, but it started hurting my own mental health because I was neglecting me, my family, my work, and I wasn't getting paid by FW22. This time I am now the executive director. I get paid. So that's huge too, because you know, a lot
time you're putting in.
a lot of people, they don't want to donate to us because we're just a volunteer-based nonprofit.
Right.
When they find out someone's getting paid, they're like, these people are serious.
Right.
And you know, same energy I had when I met with him. That's why he's here today. I went to high school with him. He did not serve. He went through his own battles in life, and I'm more invested into addiction and recovery than I've ever been in my whole life. And that was just because I had one conversation with Nate, and I was so pumped and inspired. I was like, we want to help veterans struggling with mental health. The veterans struggling with mental health are in their basement drunk or addicted to drugs
Right.
or in and out of jail. And
Yeah,
so
'cause what's that all? It all stems from,
yeah.
you know.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these vets, they're not getting help at all for their PTSD. They're on like 100,000 medicine, 100 pills a day. It's
Yeah.
insane. And if I can go out there and teach them that, hey, I get that you're struggling, but look at these resources, and I'm not just going to send you some website. We're going to do it together.
Yeah.
That's, to me, is the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And honestly, I'm making more of an impact these last 4 months than I did the previous 7 years, because I am truly helping those that are broken. And I blame, well, not blame, I give a lot of that credit to Nate, what he does with Allendale and Bare Knuckle Recovery, because he opened up my eyes to that. You know, this whole time I'm helping veterans with mental health. What does that mean?
Right.
The veterans I was helping, they only knew about us because the VA was like, hey, they'll pay your bills. Call FW22.
Right.
Yeah.
But all we were doing is enabling them, because they still had financial issues. What were they spending their money on?
Right.
Generally drugs, guns, and alcohol. And then the suicide was just so crazy. And it's like, it's going to suck, but I'm going to get in that foxhole with you. We're going to climb out together. You're going to think I'm annoying. I don't give a shit. We're going to every day attack this battle until you come out on top. And then I make them be a part of us and peer support and help other vets be like, this is the decision I made. This was the consequence, but here I am now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you should talk a little bit about what you do, because this guy works 110 hours a week. So I don't know how he does it.
Well, I mean, so I would just want to say too, I know that you said that you both feel like you wish you could be more a part of the solution, but you really are. And I always like to point out, because people talk a lot about, you know, I want to be more involved with this nonprofit or that nonprofit, but I always tell my nonprofit friends too that without for-profit companies, there's no such thing as a nonprofit.
Right.
Right. So
Okay.
just by
Yeah.
you guys being responsible business owners, good citizens, raising your kids, making money, we need people like you guys. Like
Right.
that is the bedrock of what allows Jared and I to do our jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And because I hear people lament all the time, say, well, I don't really, you know, you have a story, but they say, well, I don't really have a story. You know, I don't know where I could fit in. It's like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter what your story is. It matters what you're doing now and, you know, what your mission is, what's your purpose. You know what I mean? Are you living that out? And we all have our different parts to play, and each part is just as important. Like, you guys are just as important as Jared is to this mission, because we can't do it without you, and vice versa. Right. So I always like to point that out to people, that you guys are a huge part of it just as much as anybody else. But I've known, you know, in my journey, you know, working with Jared, but also just being in this industry of addiction recovery and mental health for the last 6.5 years, and being in recovery myself, that it seems like vets have such a higher rate than the general public of depression, anxiety, mental health problems, and substance use. And some of it definitely absolutely is because of the trauma suffered from active duty personnel being deployed. But also, I think one of the things I've been able to kind of see, and Jared and I've talked a lot about this, is the military is great at like building people up and giving them a purpose, and then people get out.
That's what I was going to say. Like, the transition out is what is the hardest thing, because like you're somebody, you're doing something, you're being told what to do pretty much every day, and then all of a sudden you're just out the door. Here you go. You're back in the real world. It's like, all right, cool. What do I do now? You know, so that is tough.
I
for sure.
There was a story I saw on Facebook Reels. There's just a guy being interviewed that tried to take his life at one point. He was a veteran, and he was a combat veteran. He was a sergeant in the Army, and he fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he said, you know, I literally led men into combat.
Right.
I was somebody. Like,
Yeah.
I served my country like at the highest level. And he said, then I get back, and here I am mopping up piss at a gas station.
There's some entry-level job.
Right. And I was told that I could do anything, and I could, you know, like Jared, you said, like, you could hit with iron sights how far?
I hit 800 yards.
Right, 800 yards, right?
Right.
And I can drink a whole bottle of Jameson in one sitting.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you get out and nobody gives a shit.
Yep.
Exactly. And they tell you can do anything you want. You're a Marine. You're a U.S. Army, you know, infantry. Like, you can do whatever you want in life.
Yep.
And then you're mopping up pee at a gas station, and people are flicking their cigarette butts down while you're trying to clean up, and, you know, giving you shit and yelling at you about lottery tickets and stuff.
Right.
And he said that I realized that the best part of my life was gone.
Yeah.
And what am I doing here? And then he
Right.
tried to take his own life. And obviously now he's made it through that and he's got perspective, but
Yeah.
he's like, what I had to do is shift my mission. Like
Mhm.
I still
Yeah, for
have
sure.
all those leadership skills and everything that it was instilled in me, and I can still serve my country. I just don't carry a rifle anymore into battle. Like
Yeah.
it's in other ways. It's being a responsible business owner. It's in
Right.
being a good father. It's
Yeah.
in being a community member that steps up, you know, and
Yep.
maybe you do still pick up cigarette butts, but it's, you don't do it because you have to, you do it because you care about your community.
Right.
And that's really, honestly, the bedrock of recovery is finding a purpose.
Yeah.
And so whether you're struggling with your mental health as a veteran or as a civilian or whatever it is, one of the things that we learned very quickly is everybody's all worried about, you know, like I have to do something big. It's
Right.
really important, right? Like
Yeah.
I got to cure world hunger, or, you know, whatever, like I got to find the cure to cancer. Well, Tony Dungy says, and I love Tony Dungy, he says that focus on your impact, not your platform.
Right.
Mhm.
And in recovery, we learn you look around and see what needs done, and that becomes your purpose.
Mhm.
You don't have to think up this big, lofty idea. And, you know, not everybody has to start a nonprofit,
Right.
you know, and it could just be that you help the old lady get the trash cans down to the end of the road on trash day. Then you help her take them back up and you go fix her fence. Like that right in of itself is purpose for a lot of people.
Be a good human.
So we just have to like get people to find a way to repurpose
Yeah.
their training and their drive, because there's so much in America, especially in 2024, that needs done.
Please say the red, white, and blue quote.
Well,
Gets me so
Jared loves
fired
it
up.
when I say this, but you know, addiction, mental health, all these problems we have in our community. We see people on TV arguing all day about vote for Trump, vote for Kamala Harris, vote for whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, at the end of the day, it's not a red or blue issue; it's a red, white, and blue issue, right? So it involves all of us, right? Like
Right.
no matter what
It gets me
party.
so fired up.
Well,
It's so good.
it's
Like
true,
it's
though.
true.
It is
Yeah,
true.
it is.
and because it doesn't discriminate, right?
The first
Like,
time he said that, I was like,
don't do that.
Right on the
that is
lips.
literally
Do
that is
it.
literally facts. And so, and this guy, he always says the same thing. Well, you know, I had hard lessons learned. This guy's full of such good quotes that like hit me. Sometimes people tell me quotes, and I'm like, every quote he says is like spot on, and
Yeah.
I'm like, him and I are so aligned. It's weird. And I do want to say too, feels good that you guys are more comfortable now,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because when you watch this episode, that intro is almost as crazy as Mark and Jared's, where they're like hitting each other, like you go first, you go first.
Do you want us to redo it?
No, I
No,
think
you're great.
it's
No, it's
phenomenal.
fine,
I
man.
think
Awesome.
the
Just
next
edit
time you
that
guys
really
come
well,
on here, you're gonna
please.
be like rock stars, and you're gonna be like, you're already gonna be like setting up the lights and knowing everything. So
Yeah.
maybe one day you're gonna have your own dust off podcast. It should be sick,
It'd be cool.
dude. Their logo is. I'm telling you, I can just see it now with choppers taking off, and then
Mhm.
there's smoke, and when it settles, it says dust off, and it's
Do we
like,
Yeah.
hire you to like come up with all the ideas for it
I mean, I
in
honestly,
the intro?
these two interns with Noah, they are rock stars.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they have a really good creative team here, and
They really do.
there's nothing else. I mean, I've done a lot of podcasts, and this is by far the only place I'll ever host or be on another podcast again. They do everything. I literally show up, chew, talk,
Yeah.
leave.
Like, bye,
check
thanks,
my
Nice.
guys.
Like, all
inbox in
right,
like 7
see you
days.
next time.
There's an episode. It's
Only
ready to
person in the
go.
building that curses probably.
Yeah, definitely the only one that says. So
Out of the staff here. he
yeah,
is.
definitely. I only said that though because I love the American flag with the eagle soaring sound. So,
Yeah.
So you try to get it in like when you can.
I
A
honestly,
well-played one.
I never did it on purpose until I was told, listen, this is the solution. It was when Sergeant Gerardo was
Oh,
on.
yeah.
He's with FW22, and
Mhm.
I actually don't think I cussed once. This guy said it 11 times in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So they came together and
Yeah,
they're
I
like,
mean,
we got to do
He's a
something.
veteran too.
I
So-
could see that. I get it.
It was awesome. And that episode was rough because that was one of our darkest episodes. We talked about his experiencing, but he did a lot of stuff with sex trafficking and you know, in the line of duty deaths, like, and I was like, man, this is
It gets heavy.
Remedy's going to tell me to not to come back, but it's important because that is the reality of the world we live in, and
Yep.
people need to not
Yeah.
sugarcoat it.
Even for veterans, that's the reality for some of them.
Yes.
You know, like
Yeah.
whether you come from a background that is involved with that before service or after, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's real.
Well, it makes me think too of how you guys have like this very interesting sense of humor,
Oh
or
yeah,
just like how you say things, and it comes off, I think, of like just, I don't know, harsh to some people,
Yeah.
but I think it's if we
It's like a coping mechanism.
well, that's the thing. Like, if
In a
we think
way,
about like
like,
what you guys have gone
have
through,
to.
you're like,
Or
this
it'll drive you
isn't.
insane.
Yeah, like it's
100%.
your.
Yeah.
I think humor and is like the way that you guys deal with things. And
I
so
used to pre-warn people, but everybody knows me. Like they know that I chew. They know that I usually dress like this.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be anybody but myself. And my mission is just literally to love humans, which is good because I do have a sweet background, I think, in the military. And I am a combat vet and I'm a disabled vet and I'm tatted and I chew. And I think I'm successful. So
You're real.
when I get to
relatable
come
to
across
most
other
veterans.
veterans,
Yeah.
they trust me and they're like, well, if this dumbass Marine can do it, so can I. And I'm like, yes, exactly. But it all starts literally with loving thy neighbor. I mean, whether I'm at mental health court or veterans court or even JCAP, the Allen County Jail, they just want to be loved and treated
Yeah.
as equals.
Right.
And that's me all the way. I'll treat every single person I meet as my own because again, when I die, doesn't matter what I believed in or who I voted for, none of that stuff. All that matters to me is that anyone I came across, they felt loved.
Mhm.
And so
and it'll be a ripple effect.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
if more people loved one another without prejudging, I think the world would be in a lot better place. Obviously, we'd still have this crazy addiction and mental health, but so many people out there, they're so defensive before they even get to meet you because they're so used to either being judged or let down or looked down upon. And it's like, I don't give a shit about your story or your history. What I care about is what we do today and moving
Right.
forward. And sometimes people think that's harsh, but it's true. I don't care. I mean, I'll listen, but I don't care about your story. Everybody has a story.
Right.
What I care about is how are you doing, really? And what are we going to do to make our lives in this world a better place?
Yeah.
And I think if you do that, you're off to a good start to something bigger than oneself. So
Yeah.
high school sweethearts,
Yeah.
right? And you go off to the Army. You said, what, 5 weeks? You're already at your first combat?
Yeah, so I went to basic a month after my 18th birthday.
Okay.
And then so my birthday's in May, basic in June, and then was it October?
Yeah. That's when you got
October, I was on my
basic
way to
in May, too.
Afghanistan. So it was pretty quick. Yeah. Yeah, there was guys. So I was actually at a reception at my first duty station at Fort Campbell, and I was supposed to go to like 1st Battalion, and I was in holding basically, and there was dudes that came around. They're like, "Hey, we're short some guys,
Okay.
and we need some volunteers.
So you
We're
volunteered, you
deploying.
didn't
Yeah, we're
voluntold.
deploying in like 5 weeks or something like that." And of course, I'm like, "Well, I'm going to deploy in a year. I'm going to deploy now." And I'm like, "I'm 18." I'm like, "Whatever. Let's just get it over with." And it was a smaller unit. It was a Pathfinder company.
Okay.
So we worked with like 20-man teams, small groups. I was like, instead of being a big army, ruck marching everywhere, I got flown everywhere. So I was
Good.
like,
so
sounds
your knees
great.
are probably A-okay.
Wait,
so you
No,
two were already
don't
dating?
tell the VA that.
Yeah. Hey,
Officially, no.
I think in 2
On the
episodes
record.
too, the new director's going to be here. So
Okay,
this is exciting.
that's cool.
So
yeah,
you two are already together?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just listening to Humphreys on the Unchained podcast, and he had this Marine, which that guy and I swear he's my twin, but him and this lady were hot and heavy, but she wouldn't say yes to dating him until she made sure he wasn't going to die in war. So like, cause it was scary and he got voluntold. And so they kind of like put everything on hold. And then when he came back, he brought flowers and was like, will you be my girlfriend? It was really, Marine, it was cute though.
That is cute.
And so, but I also thought I was kind of f***ed up. She was like, well, you're a Marine, you're probably going to die. So I'm going to wait.
Right.
But so that's good that it was already, you guys were already
I
together.
didn't know. I had never known no one in my family had served in the military. Don't
Should've
count
known
me
what she
out.
was
Okay.
getting
But I
into.
didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah.
And I remember his
Well,
cousin
you're
was,
pretty tough because that guy was probably a psychopath at one point. So
it got a little rough for
Yeah.
a while. It definitely was a rough
Yeah.
ride. But his cousin was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. He's coming home in like a couple of weeks and we're going to do this and this. He's like, Kelly, where do you think he's going? And I was like, please, he's going back here. He's like, for 10 days. Do you know what happens after that? I was like, no. He leaves. He's like, you don't know where he could not even be stationed in the US. I was like, oh my gosh, what? Like, we didn't, I don't know. I guess like,
yeah.
Blake is, like you're a fierce protector. You love our family. You would never do anything to put me or our kids in harm's way. But he's also like I'll just like give it to her in bits and pieces,
Sure.
and then it'll
I'm
be
just gonna
fine.
wing it. I'm
Yeah.
going with
And
it.
so
Just roll with
I was
it.
like, where are you going after this? And I think within a couple of days then you found out that you were landed
This
at
is
Fort
Fort
Campbell.
Campbell. It was
So
only
that
like-
was, drivable.
yeah,
But yeah, I was just
wasn't too
in,
bad.
You were 18 and I was in my senior year of high school, and we'll also pretend like I was also 18.
Yeah, it sounds sketchy too.
Where when you were in Afghanistan, where were you at?
First deployment, we were in Salerno, like Kos
Okay.
province, and then I was in Kandahar.
Kandahar.
Second deployment. Yep.
That place, Afghanistan, just for the record, is a shithole. Okay?
It is.
I hate that place.
Salerno was better than Kandahar.
The
Kandahar
weather
is just a
sucks.
giant. Yeah, that base is too big.
I don't like the people that are over there because they're mean and they're just
yeah.
That's why I live life so paranoid. I don't trust anybody. I'm like, all right, what is it that you want? So, and we were in Afghanistan. So if we were in Afghanistan at the same time, we would have been there when Bin Laden got killed.
Yeah.
And what was crazy is I never knew this till I was talking about it one day, because when I first came home, I didn't talk about, like, nobody even knew I was a Marine. I just wanted to forget I ever even served. And I'll remember vividly the SEALs extraction point was in Afghanistan. And I remember, I'll never forget this, how eerie that whole shithole was. It was so quiet. And if it's quiet, it's never good.
Right.
When the villages are all of a sudden scarce and not full of people and donkeys and something's going on. And now to this day, I realize that's because they all knew what just happened, and they definitely hate us now.
Yeah.
And so the whole time, you're Afghanistan, just getting blown up, pissing in bottles, like laughing. And that's kind of messed up though. Like, I didn't realize shit could have really hit the fan. So that was a wild time.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like, I don't know, you can speak to this. I don't want to like put words in your mouth, but it kind of, from a perspective back here at home, not being there, I believe Bin Laden was it May 1st, beginning of May, that he was.
I don't remember.
That he was,
so.
And your unit was, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but 6 guys were killed out of his unit. May 26th. So it definitely felt like a retaliation. Yeah. I would say, like, from this end, I obviously wasn't over there. I don't know what you guys experienced.
Well, what's crazy too is it was right before Ramadan, which is when they're supposed to be peaceful. They were not peaceful. Let me tell you.
They're hungry and angry and tired.
And when I found out,
angry.
Yeah, I think I found out, like, I don't know, probably within a day later, and I was so pumped. I was like, this is the greatest news ever. But it's weird too, is a lot of the people that we would fight against, they had no idea what, like, 9/11 even was. Whereas for me, that's my whole focus. I'm ready to attack from something I saw in 6th grade.
Yep.
And the ones I'm attacking have no idea. So it's really weird. I guess war in general is just weird. I think the Iraq and Afghanistan war is so different from all the other wars we're in. But I think
wasn't conventional. It wasn't like you didn't know who it was. Like,
well, yeah, they
knew exactly who they were fighting.
Exactly. They don't follow the Geneva Convention, so they don't have to have uniforms. So that same 6-year-old boy that you're trying to give candy to, you could also be literally putting in the ground, because it's just wild over there.
Well, and kind of to your point of that, they didn't even know 9/11 happened. Who did they think that you guys were?
There was a small village out in the middle of nowhere. They thought the Russians were still in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I mean, from
that's crazy.
What was that, the 70s?
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of the IEDs and stuff, like whenever EOD would go through, a lot of it was parts from China and Russia and stuff.
Soviet munitions.
So it's a lot of RPKs over there, and it's just, I don't know. Afghanistan is just like, I can laugh about it now, but for a long time I didn't talk about it. I just got wasted and fought anything and everything I could. How I never got arrested, blows my mind, because I was really a ticking time bomb. But my first 3 days in Afghanistan, this is not funny, but I'm gonna laugh. There was this vehicle, it was all charred up. It was a 6x6 MRAP with a mine roller, which is what I drove. And they were power washing the inside to get rid of the burnt flesh, and it stunk so bad. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, this is what you're gonna be driving, like, not that one, but the same model. And I'm over here like, whoa, what happened?
Protect anybody.
Yeah, right. And they're like, it was the Jordanians, and they went to this village and raped and killed a bunch of the women and children. So the Taliban put a hit on them, and the Taliban got theirs because they were all dead. But all I could think about was, like, if I'm supposed to drive that, those bombs went right. So I was already freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, your first time you get there, you see a guy on his phone on a rooftop. You're just like what you see in the movies. Yeah. But by the end of deployment, you could have blown me up. I wouldn't have cared. I didn't even wear my armor. I didn't even have my gun loaded. I was just chilling, driving. So I was very complacent at the end. Yeah, that place is a shithole, and I don't ever want to go back. Just the way it smells like, I mean, they literally would chew, and they'd take those what was those plants called?
The cat.
No, the
like
drugs.
the poppies.
Yeah,
Like
and they
poppies
would
Oh,
wrap
chew the poppy.
they'd wrap it
Yeah.
around goat shit, and that's what they would chew.
Nice.
And then they're trying to talk to me, and I'm like, "You need to go 20 yards away. I'm gonna throw up, dude. Get out
Yeah.
of
I
there."
would guess dental hygiene wasn't top priority.
Dude, it was nuts. Well, some of the best bread I used to eat was made out of ovens that they created
But
with
they-
shit.
Oh, well, yeah, and they flatten it with their feet.
Yeah, they're disgusting.
Foot bread, man.
Did you
that
get in
was
trouble for
so
that too?
good.
No, I didn't get in trouble. I'm not in anymore. Once I stole some cows, and then I resold it to them to get food. So it's kind of messed up, but I was hungry. I was so constipated from the MREs. I needed anything else.
Yeah, but
Well, and I just feel like, kind of to your point earlier, the military can do all the drills and training that they want with you, but nothing can mentally prepare you for what
Yeah.
you guys were going to experience, or anyone that's gone over there.
Yeah.
And so your
I don't think they
mindset was
have a plan.
different. And I think that I don't know, I think you guys just bury a lot to just survive and make it back home. And then that gets masked by so many other things that it just never gets dealt with.
Yeah.
Or until you're ready to deal with it.
So I just talked about this too on one of the podcasts about, and it's Nate's fault too that I even recognize this stuff, because one of the things that he said at one time, and it pissed me off because I didn't understand. He was like, "I'm an addict," and I'm like, "No, you're not. You're a freaking savior in our community." He's like, "No, I'm an addict. I'm in recovery," and I'm probably an alcoholic, but I will never admit that. So I'm like, what is this guy talking? But he allowed me to understand that it's okay to admit these things, and it's okay to have emotions. And so now I tell people, like the Marines, or the military, we have so much built up anger and buried emotions that if we don't ever address it, we're never going to heal, and we're never going to be our full potential. So I tell people it's okay to cry. It's
Yeah.
okay to tell your loved one that you love them. It's okay to hug them.
Right.
It's okay to break down. But we don't do that. But we need to. Once you can admit that you have a problem, once you can admit that you're in recovery, once you can admit that, you need to cry like a big old baby, like those are good things.
Mhm.
And
It's all because when you're in, if you do any of that,
Yeah.
you're a pussy.
well, that's
You know what I
was
mean?
just
Like,
saying, yeah.
like it's
Rub some
instilled in
dirt on
you
it.
to literally
my
like
face.
they harden you.
Yeah.
Like you're just you're there to do a job. So I mean, I get it. Yeah.
Well, I
that's-
think I'm telling you, Nate has done wonders for
Yeah.
me these last 4 or 5 months now, 6 months. Well, actually, we're in July, so 7 months, because he really is the key component to FW22 coming back on track, because I know what I wanted to do, but he showed me that, hey, you got to take care of yourself, and
yeah.
you have to admit when you struggle, and and I'm just like, who the freak is this guy? Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
And I think FW22, I mean, and our new board is full of rock stars. I think Tyler, he's the current president.
Mhm.
We have a really good board, and I mean, this year we're kind of just coasting because I'm rebuilding it and doing all the logistics and paperwork. But 2025, I'm telling you, stand by, because we are going to take over the state. And hopefully by 2027, we are the national standard for veteran services and mental health. And I'm partnered with people like Remedy and Bare Knuckle Recovery and Allendale. And I mean, really, no one's going to stop us. We're going to be a wrecking
Yeah.
force. But that's what we need. Every day someone's killing themselves.
Yeah.
Every day someone's overdosing.
I think there's no exit strategy
Our country spends so much money.
for
I mean,
anybody to know.
the
No.
Kamala Harris chick just got like a record 800 million raised in 24 hours. It's like, if we could put that same attention on our border security and fentanyl crisis and
Right.
China and all that, like, we got to put our country first.
Yeah.
So since I will never be a big, famous, popular politician, great, I'm going to put my
Yeah.
community first with my small ass movement. And I'm just going to make sure the people here that know I love them,
Yeah.
and that it's okay. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to not be okay. And we're going to get through this together.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
it feels like FW22, the job for them is going to be to do what you talked about, having an exit strategy for people leaving the
Yeah,
military.
because there isn't one.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't set you up. I mean, unless you're like retiring, like after 20 years, maybe.
For the average guy,
But
that's
the
46
average
years.
dude that's in to
Right.
get his free college tuition and get out,
Mhm.
mm-mm.
And then I feel like as the spouse, like, we don't know how to help you when you come
Right.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know what to do. There's
Right.
I mean, you just kind of struggle, I guess, alone. And then I think you're scared to like say what's actually happening in your home.
Sure.
And people are going to judge you and what that looks
Mm.
like. And yeah, so I think that it would be amazing.
No, it's gonna happen. We used to, I call it a tour, but we used to speak to active duty bases, which I want to start doing again.
Yeah.
Because if I show up one time and say, "Hey, reach out to me," they're never gonna reach out to
Right.
me.
Right.
Just like at the courts, the first time I showed up, second time I showed up, now I'm there every week or once a month, and I'm actually speaking next to the judge, and so now they reach out because they trust me. I'm not just another person with this fancy profile, and then they never see him again. But no, I want us to be a tool for success for when you get out. Like I really do hope the VA, because we're supposed to be getting our own little marketing stuff pushed into the VA hospitals, which is huge. And it's hard to get the VA to endorse another nonprofit, right? But
Right.
we've been around 10 years. We have a perfect track record. I really want to be with that GI Jane or GI Joe before they get their DD-214 and just say, this is what we're going to do. Because, yeah, I mean, the veteran struggles, if they're married, that's going to be a very rocky. I don't even know what the percentage is, but I'm sure a lot of marriages fail just from when they come home. And then it's really hard on the spouse too. I don't want to touch on anything uncomfortable, but
Or open books, you can.
Well, it's just, here you are married to this guy, high school sweetheart, and now he's alienated yourself, which is crazy because he's finally home, right? He's free, he's home, but yet you're more distant from him now than you've ever been before. And then you start thinking about yourself. What am I doing wrong? Am I not pretty anymore? Am I not satisfied? So it's just a whole chuckle effect. And then he's beating himself up because he is a veteran now. He does have his marital problems. So what's something that he did in the service to help? He drinks. And then he's drinking. Then it becomes to whether it's adultery or pills and then one day he's playing with a gun and he blows his brains out.
Right.
That's crazy to me. That blows my mind. If we can get there before they get that DD-214 and say, listen, you son of a gun, this is how your life's going to be if you don't walk with me, I think we could really make a huge difference. And so that's just kind of how I would like to do things starting next year. And I think it'll be very successful.
And what does that... Sorry.
I was just say, like, that purpose that you have when you're in, like, you instantly lose it.
Yeah.
Because, like, a lot of MOSs, there's no job title when you get out that is the same thing. Infantrymen, there's nothing really for people when they get out that do that.
Yeah.
So, like, to keep that mindset of like, hey, I have a purpose, to keep that going once you're out.
Yeah.
If you guys, you know what I mean?
I was a corporal in Afghanistan with Marines.
Yeah. Keep that
and within 6 months of being a veteran, I was divorced. I mean, I went quick.
Right. But if you could somehow
I
keep
think
a
that would
purpose.
be very close to like what our story could have done.
Well, that's why I was just speaking.
I think we were like very, it got real rocky.
Yeah.
That's why I was speaking
rocky.
just generally. I didn't want to but I've
No,
done
you
this
nailed
for
it.
so long that I know.
It's the same story.
So I know.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to specifically call you two out, but I know. I've done this for a long time and I don't have a degree in this. I'm not a social worker or a therapist, but I've done this for so long that
it's the same pattern that you
I
see with
know.
everybody.
Therapists are great, by the way.
Do what?
Therapists that are in EMDR or Flash.
Well, that's what I did.
Is huge because you're not going to sit there and talk about your emotions if you don't want to.
If
you're doing EMDR and it.
What was it?
Red light therapy, which is what he said.
Yeah, it's the eye movement.
Yeah, I've wasted so much money and so many therapist times because I didn't really care. And my last therapist, she was like, "Listen, we're gonna try this. You're gonna fucking," and I'm like, and we probably
was she private? Was her last name start with an N?
No, L.
Okay.
So, anyways,
I don't want to say her name on air here.
So,
but she's pretty legit.
Yeah, and it took us 6 months before we could even try because I didn't take it serious.
Right.
And she was like, she told me you identify with water. You're the ocean. Think about the ocean. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm thinking about my back on this stupid couch of yours.
Right.
So I wasn't taking it serious. So then she made me do the joysticks.
Yeah, the buzzies.
And I literally prayed. Actually, it was wild. And I actually got wasted. And I prayed. And I just said, dude, listen, help me because I don't like role playing.
Yeah.
I don't like. It's just not for me. I'm not gonna sit there at our old work. We used to role play on knocking doors, and I was the boss, so I still don't want to do it. And they'd be like, "Hey, boss, will you just be the homeowner?" I'm like, "I'm busy." So now I got to role play that I'm in the ocean, and I'm like, "Listen, I just gave in and I did it, and it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. It doesn't make my trauma not exist, but I'm okay with it now. I'm
Right.
okay with things I've seen. I'm okay with things I did.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
It's legit.
Highly.
Yeah.
Well, when I first did it, I don't know, it was years ago. But I mean, I was in therapy for, what was it, 3 or 4 years consistently.
Mm-hmm.
But the VA, they weren't, none of the therapists were certified in
Yeah.
EMDR because the training was too expensive.
Well, they also told
And I
you.
think that they've opened that up now, though. So
Oh, have they?
Oh, I hope.
I don't know about that, but if they did, that'd be great.
Yeah,
because I
know that they were looking into it.
would pay
at
it for every
least.
veteran to do it. It is
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
It's-
life saving.
That's a good
Honestly,
idea.
that's a game changer.
Well, and so we see the same therapist. It just was like a weird turn of events, I guess, of you had tried other therapy through the VA, weren't really probably taking it seriously. I know you weren't doing like your homework is what they would say.
Right.
Yeah.
I had our first daughter and had like some pretty bad postpartum issues.
Yeah.
And so I was immediately sent over to this therapist's office and she's like, well, that's interesting that they sent you to me. Like, I'm a trauma specialist, but I can help you.
Mhm.
And she was like, oh, everybody has trauma. And I was like, no, like, I'm fine, you know?
Yeah.
And I will never forget, you know, they kind of do this intake of like, who are you? Give me your background story. And started talking about Blake. And her eyes, I'll never forget, her eyes like not lit up, but she was like, I can help you. And I was like, nobody, like, that's great. I love that for you.
Yeah.
But it's been at this point 7 years and nobody's helped him. So like, I don't even want to open that door of hope,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so she did kind of then was like, hey, bring him into like your session and like we'll develop this
Sucked me
rapport.
in.
And he's like, I'm not seeing her, like I'm not doing this. And it was I mean, it's definitely been a great experience. I know we sometimes go see her. I still see her.
Yeah.
I saw her yesterday and told her that we were gonna be on this podcast. And was like, what would you want like someone to know? Because I think that there's this, I think like we hear, and I think it's becoming more acceptable, like it's okay to not be okay. And like kind of breaking that stigma. But then like where do you go when you know like I need help? Like where's that first step?
Right.
And I think that there's that disconnect. And so we were talking and, you know, she said she, you know, kind of like a therapist is never going to make you do kind of what you were saying. Like, you're like, I'm not going to do it. And you said it too, like never going to like force you to do something you're not ready for. And then she talked about Flash and that there's like a website you can go to. I can even pull out my phone and pull it up. I just forget what she told me, where then like someone could physically watch, like the guy who created Flash, he's doing, obviously like it's not a real session, but he's showing the example of what it would look like. And the whole thing is like, you don't have to like kind of like get in the trenches of your feelings. Like it can just be like a couple of highlighted things so they know what you're targeting.
Mhm.
Sure.
And
It's very, very effective.
I think it was definitely a significant impact for you, because I feel like at one
For
point
sure.
we definitely, yeah, like it was, PTSD was very heavy and all consuming in our home. And I always say like, I love you so much, but, like you're my roommate.
Yeah.
Like I don't know you, I don't know who this is. And
Yeah.
someone who had been through this way before I did said you have to get him drunk for him to tell you what happened.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, it
It's our
works.
fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that shed a little bit more light. And then I also remember you've told me, you can say like you don't want me to say this, but you were like, I don't want to get close to you and I don't want to love you because you're gonna die too.
Mm.
And I don't want to
Mhm.
feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was heartbreaking.
It's a real trauma response.
Yeah. And I think
It's
like as
natural.
the spouse, like you just feel so like, yeah, like that was I was like, that is true. I get that.
Yeah.
But I feel so heartbroken. I don't even know how to help you.
Mhm.
And what does that look like? And I would just say like, this is probably going off on a tangent, but I'm so glad, like it'll make me emotional. Like I'm so glad that we fought. Like, and we fought hard. Like, and I think saying that means like, while Blake and like the military and deployments and things that happen, like broke him and like he struggles like his own like mental warfare with that. Like I'm not perfect either.
Mhm.
And I wanted to just like try to say like, this is what's wrong with you. Like you came back this person and this is who you used to be. Like that didn't help. And I had to look at my own self and say like, okay, what toxic behaviors do I have that I'm also contributing to this marriage? And like I have to work on myself too here. And I think that was really impactful, is that we both worked on ourselves
Mhm.
separately in like we didn't go together. And then eventually we came together, and it was nice because I feel like then the therapist was able to kind of like be his voice, like, mean, you can tell I'm obviously doing more of the talking, and I'm feisty when
I'm
I
not
get
much
mad
of a
too.
talker.
And so I feel like I like diminished his voice, and already he's in a state of like, I'm sure like you guys can relate to this, of just like, I'm gonna keep it so trapped inside me, I don't even want to tell you. And then here I am like trying to like claw it out. Well, that's not gonna work.
Well, and I mean, we made it through that, but I wonder if that's like what happens with a lot of relationships. You know, somebody comes home different. It's like
Yeah.
you don't see eye to eye anymore. So it's like, well, it's easy to blame the veteran or, you know, whoever has the problem.
Yeah.
Like, well, you were gone, you experienced this. So it's like, you know, you're just a completely different person. So I'm out. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of an adjustment for sure.
And we were so young. Like you had just turned 21 while you were over there, a week before your teammates were killed. I was 20. And I just don't think that like you realize, like I would think I'm very lucky and fortunate at that point. Like I hadn't experienced a ton of death. Like, of course he's going to come home different. Of
Yeah.
course, like that's going to be impactful. That would be like if you've ever lost anyone close to you, like you're never going back to who you are.
Yeah.
And I think even knowing that would have been helpful.
It was hard
And then
getting out so young too. 21 years old, I was moving back. She was at Ball State.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, 2 deployments in and I'm getting out of the Army, coming
Yeah.
back to a college town. I'm like,
Two different
all
worlds.
these, like the maturity levels, I'm like, I can't handle
I
this
bet.
stuff. I'm like, I want to beat everybody.
You were an old
Honestly,
soul
like, I
at
just wanna-
21. About
yeah,
a
I was
bunch of
like, the
kids.
maturity level, I'm like, I cannot do this right now. Like, this is tough. This is tough.
No, but it's important that you guys tell
Yeah.
your story like this because
Yeah.
there's probably people that are going to watch this, families that are
Yeah.
struggling right now of people getting out or returning home from wherever they've been deployed.
Yeah.
And they probably feel like there's no hope,
Right.
you know? And I just think about how lonely that was for you, but also for you to where you feel like you couldn't connect with it because we always talk about the opposite of addictions, human connection.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the opposite of the opposite of despair. All things
Yeah.
negative is human connection. We're
Mhm.
made to be in community. That's why when you put somebody in solitary confinement, it does so
yeah.
much damage to their psyche for years.
Yep.
You're traumatized from the lack of human interaction,
Right.
right? So if you're doing that on your own because you're pulling away because you're afraid to make those connections for fear of losing them, that's got to be incredibly difficult for both people. And I think it was very wise what you said too about you both had your own stuff to work through. And that's so important because you can't be, when you try to put two people together, like you don't just bring the good qualities, you bring all the bad and all the baggage too.
Right.
So you're bringing positives together, but you're also bringing negatives. So that's super important for people to remember. Like when you're having problems in the marriage, it's like, okay, they teach us in recovery to look at ourselves. They always say we can only control our own actions or our own attitudes, right? And we always talk about like it's not my business what anybody else thinks about me. It's just I have responsibility for my own actions, my own attitudes.
Mhm.
So if we focus on that and we start to kind of go our separate ways to get better, then you come back together, it's going to be even better than it was before.
Right.
I think it's great you guys are sharing this because there's probably, again, that's the power of these podcasts is shared experience.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a lot of podcasts, and I'm not knocking them, but even with addiction and then like veterans, it's always and we call addiction, we call talking about drug stories, we call that war stories too.
Right.
So a lot of war story and like, tell me about you. What was that like? And what'd you guys do? Oh, that's cool stuff. But most people don't talk about these topics. They don't talk about the struggles,
Right.
but then also the solution around the struggles, which I think is super important.
Yeah.
And with your two story, which obviously it means more to me because I do genuinely love you both. But your story is one of hundreds of thousands that are just like that.
Right.
But boy, how cool would it have been if you knew that just go to FW. I mean, we didn't
Right.
exist when this happened,
Right.
but
Right.
go to FW22 and they're gonna we don't have that. You
Right.
come home and you're literally alone. You're isolated. And I mean, I had to find out the hard way. Luckily, I survived. You guys found out the hard way. Luckily, you survived. But I use this too to encourage because you have a real life story. Obviously, you're our partner because you believe in what we do and you wrote us a beautiful check. I encourage you to, and I get it, you're busy, but take it a step above and use your story to help other veterans because every day someone's becoming a veteran and there's a good chance they're married. And it's really hard. And I'm not saying it's more hard for the veteran than it is the spouse, but the veteran has to navigate this whole new world.
Yeah.
And his
Yeah.
marriage. And it's just like, and then the wife doesn't, she's just like, dude, why are you alienating me? I'm like, what you said, we're roommates.
Right.
And that's crazy. It's not every veteran's going to come home and cry and tell what's going on. And especially because you cannot be not manly to your wife, but that is manly. It is, being transparent and vulnerable to the one that you call your significant other is very manly or womanly. But it's just not what we're taught.
No.
And I would love it. I would literally love to have cry sessions. I swear. It sounds weird, but
Right.
so many vets,
Yeah.
just humans, there's just so much trauma and anger and just bullshit build up. They just need to let go, let it out. Let it out. And so I do encourage you to, and we'll talk more after this, but to really step up. And I want you two to be very crucial in our movement, without taking away your time, because you guys are running 2 businesses with your own family. But yeah, and I do appreciate you two coming on. I hope your podcast jitters have, and next time you're telling me where to sit and all this good stuff. I think, how are we doing on time? Oh, sweet. So you're not, I'm used to Noah making weird movements and being like, so I guess in closing, what I would like for you two to do is talk to me more, not just about your business, but, we've established the 2 businesses. We established Army. We established we established, the relationship, the good, the bad. We established the light therapy. What is it that NPI and then homegrown dust off? What are some things you'd like to do with FW22 to make change? Or what are some things you think FW22 should be doing to make more change? Because it's not about me. I've always said this, FW22 doesn't exist without the community. I might be the psycho that you see as the face, but it's a community effort. And so your opinion is just as important as my opinion. What is something that we could do collaboratively to really get out there?
Don't look at me. I have no idea.
I could see a great opportunity where they maybe like you guys record your story with Remedy.
Yep.
And create a video, because they do that a lot with people with unique stories that have overcome things. Like as a couple, you could tell your story and then
Our
use
story
that as
goes even farther back, to be honest.
that's good.
It's real interesting. I don't know if I want to
good.
air that out, but it
You don't have
goes
to tell
way
everything.
back.
You don't have to tell everything, but just maybe, certain
I'll
parts.
tell you about it.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess from like a practical standpoint, I'm going to guess that you guys see people living in like unlivable conditions.
Oh, yeah.
And is there something that like we could do to come on to educate them, to just empower them on if they're looking for a place, what to maybe look out for? If they maybe just like knowing like their own like rights around like being a renter or looking for a home.
Smart.
And then possibly just giving them some information on some home maintenance things, because money is, I don't want to say money is an issue, but like we know like they're strapped, and like calling someone to fix your water heater even is gonna like break the bank, and maybe they can't pay rent. And what are some things where you're like, hey, when this is happening, this, you could actually just tighten this up or put this on it, and at least like buy you some time to save up for one.
Right.
Or
Those water heaters are expensive.
Yeah.
We've bought like 7 or 8 for veterans over the years, and
Wow.
that's expensive. I was like, you guys are criminals. This is crazy.
right. But
Extra
yeah, I don't know,
business
just
is
stuff
good.
like that.
Yeah, business is definitely good for them.
Yeah, I feel like we'll have to get together and figure something out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
very
we can
valuable.
do.
Well, that's
for
a
sure.
yeah, that's a good point too. HVAC, just even changing your furnace filter
Right.
helps a lot
big
to
deal.
not break the system down.
Sure.
So it's just $40 versus an $8,000 system. So maybe some
yeah.
stuff like that.
Because that's overwhelming. Like when you have other stuff going on and little stuff starts to add
Oh,
up,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what puts people over the edge. Like the day that you do something that you're going to regret or you can't take back isn't the day that like all the bad stuff happens. It's the day like your shoelaces break, you step in dog crap,
Yeah.
your car doesn't start, and then your air filter goes out and you're like,
Yeah.
screw it.
Yeah.
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 Or
it's
when
been
you're
built
when you're
up.
also in survival mode, you're not thinking about any of that stuff.
Absolutely not. You're triaging constantly. What's important? What do I need? What's immediate? What's, what do I need to tourniquet right now?
No, it's very helpful. Like I said, I obviously didn't tell you beforehand, but you're stuck with me now. Like I have literally a very select.
Serious.
It's gonna be awesome too, because eventually there's gonna be companies and they're gonna be like, we want, and I'm gonna say no, you're not our fit. I want a very select group of businesses, whether they're veteran owned or not, that I feel like aligns with our mission and is the best for our fight for mental health. And so yeah, we're gonna have a beautiful partnership. Um, and yeah, it's not gonna cost you any time or energy. But just knowing that you have our back is huge. And I really do want to thank you both for coming out here and being on the podcast and being part of FW22, telling your story. Not to be weird, but I do appreciate you for serving your country. It does
Thanks.
mean a lot to
You
me.
too.
Yeah, it's weird. It does mean a lot, and I
Thank you for your
appreciate.
service.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking time to come to Famous Taco. That place is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I know, I haven't been back there.
Yeah, I don't
but
think I've
want
been there
to.
either.
I just
To be
not.
honest,
It's just not in my normal route.
but yeah, it means a lot, and I look forward to having you two on our podcast again. I think
Yeah.
we're getting ready to wrap up season 1, but it meant a lot. So thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
thanks.
much.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And thank you both for just paving the road. I think this is something that we talk about a lot. And then like our group of your unit is still pretty close and you guys keep in contact a lot, that we all talk about of like, well, where do you even start? And you guys are doing that. And so it's nice to just be able to come alongside you and say like, hey, how can we help in this? So thank you.
Thank you guys.